Gertrude goes on to say, I've learned enough in my research and talking to therapists that their father has to drive the bus and I'm his co-pilot when it comes to his kids. We don't always see eye to eye, and parenting is most of our struggle. And that's going to be not just with step households, but if parents are not on the same page, that's going to be a huge issue. And even if the same page, like ideally we want parenting to be the least controlling, the least punitive, the least restrictive. Hopefully that makes sense. And we want to give children as much leeway as possible for them to make choices and fail at those choices. And then, in my opinion, and then parents step in and kind of redirect. So parenting, I think, is elastic. So ideally, we want parenting to look something like that, in my opinion. Even if parents are not on the same board, on the same page to that, maybe they're on the same page to something else along the parenting spectrum, from like free-range parenting, where the kids they can go out and do whatever they want, and that's probably misrepresentation of free-range parenting, sorry. Well, there's a lot more freedom, I'll put it that way. Toward the spectrum from that toward very authoritarian parenting, where parents have complete say-so all the time, lots of control, lots of demands. So somewhere in between there, even if the parents are not on the same page when it comes to the least restrictive or more freedom, if they're on the same page somewhere in the middle, that's better than not being on the same page, in my opinion. Now, if you're both on the same page when it comes to high restriction, high punishment, high control, that's not ideal in my opinion. But if you're on the same page, if there's an agreement point that can be made somewhere on the spectrum of parenting, like, to me, that's a heck of a lot better than not being on the same page and bickering, especially if you're bickering with each other about the right thing to do. To me, that's more of a problem than being on the same page, even if it's less than perfect. But otherwise, based on what Gertrude says here, I agree, and I don't have a whole lot more to add, that when it comes to biological children, stepchildren, step-parents, that the biological parent should be the one to drive things like consequences, structure. I think the step-parent, and I don't have anything wonderful to add here, I think the step-parent is the quote-unquote co-pilot. To me, this really depends on the level of attachment and family functioning, and maybe that step parent can take on more of an active role. I've seen that. That's not a big deal. But if the rules, I guess in my opinion, when it comes to step parents, that the attachment, the bond, kind of has to come first. Well, same thing with biological parents too, huh? But with step parents, I think that the connection is probably more important than the rules and whatnot. The rules should come from the biological parent while the step parent works on building a safe connection with the stepchildren, in my opinion. So being a co-pilot, sure, but you can also be a support for the biological parents' interventions. You can be a support to them, and I guess that kind of falls under the idea of co-piloting until there's more development, more solidification of the relationship or the role in the family, until there's more of a buy-in, and that comes through just healthy attachment and safety and whatnot. When you have that, then maybe the step parent can step up and be more of a rules, boundaries, structure, and enforcement kind of parent as well. Teens that I've worked with, they consistently say, though, that this is their biggest issue, is that there's I haven't worked with a whole lot of step parents. Usually it's a biological parent's partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, that they're in the home or visiting the home, and while they're there, they're going way overboard as far as trying to enforce rules. They're yelling at the kids. They're trying to dole out consequences. They're not working on the structure. They're not working on the bonding. They're not working on the bonding, and they're prioritizing being the boss or being. And what my teen clients will say is that, like, they're not my parent, they're not my dad. Why are they attempting to kind of be the dominant one? Especially the biggest problem is when they especially override the biological parent, and that's like a personality kind of thing, or maybe that partner is in this like fight energy, and they feel this urge to dominate. Whatever the driving force is that this is a consistent constant issue for my clients that I work with that are younger, that are teenage years or even younger, is that this other person's coming into the home and being highly disruptive and attempting to dominate or kind of be the boss, or they call it, they say, why are they trying to be my parent? But really, it's not about being a parent. Seems like it's more about gaining control of the home. So that I hear that a lot from my clients, is that they don't want the step parent or the significant other to step in or come in and attempt to assert what their values or their expectations onto the family unit, or especially onto the kid themselves. And this ends up building resentment. Like it doesn't work. The attachment has to be there. The connection has to be there before attempting to assert our values onto these children as step parent, or not, I'm not a step parent. Before a step parent or anybody attempts to assert their values, there really has to be, I think, a more of a healthy connection. And then from that, values can be shared and discussed and not necessarily imposed. I think the biological parent probably will do more of that kind of stuff, where there's an imposition of rules and boundaries, and like, look, this is just the way our home looks, like that. That's probably more of a biological parent thing. But also the step parent can be a mentor. They can be a role model, and that can help build attachment and connection, is being that safe person, that predictable person that acts as, I don't want to say friend. I don't think friend's the right word, but more of a mentor, like an adult mentor, and just someone who sets an example of behavior, whatever that looks like in the family. Someone who is approachable without imposing. I think that's probably not a first step, but that would be maybe a milestone of just building a connection with a child that's not biologically yours, that you haven't raised, and you're coming into the home. That might be like a benchmark or a milestone, if you can go from just being a safe person, working on connection building, and then becoming more of a mentor or example. And then the biological parent is more of that enforcer, pilot, structure kind of person. I think that could be a good initial balance.